All right, hello and welcome. Am I too loud for you? Been accused of that.
I live.
All right. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Top 10. I'm your host, Joe Johnson. My guest here today is Tim Williams. Welcome.
Thank you.
Host of Collection, Reflection, and other things.
Thank you very much.
And
But I was going into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. I had to have something. Like the old days.
What was Uncle Owen's response to that? You can waste time with your friends. I don't know.
Later.
All right, so I invited Tim to take part in our Top 10 podcast, and I had him suggest the topic, which, of course, the topic he came up with was right up my alley. Today we are going to talk about our all-time favorite Star Wars toys. Star Wars came out when I was 10 years old and just had such a huge impact on me as a kid. As a matter of fact, the very first thing that I ever saw that had Star Wars characters on it was this little magazine that I got at summer camp. And you can see the date on it. It says May 11th, 1977. I was actually at summer camp when school let out, so I got this probably in June, early June. And this was my first exposure to Star Wars. And the fact that I still have this flimsy little magazine today tells you about the impact that the visual impact it had on me immediately as a 10-year-old kid. Tim, do you remember your first exposure to Star Wars when you were like, what the heck is this all about?
Okay, so I would have only been 5 when Star Wars came out, and it's kind of fuzzy. The memories, I'm not exactly sure what was first and what wasn't. There's a few things that stick out. One of the things was Burger Chef toys. I want to say they had Happy Meals before, or they had kids meals before McDonald's had Happy Meals. So not only did they have commercial with R2-D2 and C3PO in it, but I don't even think I'd seen the commercial. I think I was just eating there and got a kids meal, and it had like cardboard cutouts and stuff like that. That's one thing. I do remember my first action figure, and I don't think I had seen the movie yet. It was, I'm guessing, my 6th or 7th birthday. And my next door neighbor was a couple years younger than me. He comes over. I remember this like perfectly. It was like, I think I was up early, like Saturday morning, watching cartoons. He comes over, knocks on the door, and we hadn't really been friends yet. I don't even remember if we'd met. I think they had probably just moved in. So he knocks on the door, hands me the present, and is just like, doesn't even say anything, and leaves. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. But anyway, so I open it, and yeah, and it was Chewbacca. It was like the original Chewbacca figure. But I just remember looking at the back of the package and just, being obsessed. But then it turns out that, he became my best friend, and he had like everything, which I'll mention again later. But those are the two biggest memories that stick out. And then I'm assuming maybe I already knew what Star Wars was, but I remember getting my tonsils out, and there was like a kid there that was drawing pictures of Darth Vader and stuff. So in my mind, I don't think I had seen it yet, so I didn't really know what he was drawing. But that's those are like the 3 things that stick out, and I don't know what order they were in really.
Yeah.
But
I following going to summer camp and getting that little magazine. I didn't see Star Wars till probably a month or so later, because I remember begging to go see it. In the meantime, there was stuff hitting stores like Marvel Comics and stuff like that before I got a chance to see the movie. So I read the Marvel Comics before I saw the movie. So I knew the whole story. I knew everything about Star Wars. I just hadn't seen the movie yet. And I have such a vivid memory of loading up into the family vehicle, driving to Beacon East movie theater, which was in East Detroit at the time, and seeing Star Wars on the marquee and going, oh my God, we're finally going to see Star Wars. And like I said, it just had such a huge impact on me as a kid. Now, one thing they sort of messed up on was not anticipating the response that they would get from fans and kids. And so there were no toys in the stores when Star Wars came out, which today is unthinkable, unimaginable that there was no Star Wars toys. So Star Wars came out on May 25th, 1977. And so when Christmas rolled around and kids were demanding Star Wars toys, there was nothing to be found in stores. So this is kind of what they got instead.
Star Wars figures. R2-D2. Chewbacca, Luke, and Princess Leia. They're the Star Wars Early Bird set of figures. These action figures are not yet available, but this Star Wars Early Bird certificate package is in stores with this colorful Star Wars picture display stand and certificate to send in to get a set of figures by mail. They'll be sent to you at home between February 1st and June 1st. The Star Wars Early Bird certificate package, new from Kenner.
So imagine as a kid getting this certificate on Christmas Day and saying you're going to have to wait for these figures to arrive. I don't know when they shipped. Do you have any idea when the early bird figures actually shipped?
I want to say, from what I've read, I don't think they shipped until summer.
Oh my God.
It could have been spring, but from what people have said, in my mind, they didn't get them until summertime.
Wow. That's imagine that anticipation of being a kid and wanting the toys.
When you're a kid and just the way things go, you'd probably kind of forgot about it by
Yeah,
the
right.
time, if it was spring or especially summer. But yeah.
And so then sometime after that is when the figures started arriving in stores. And I brought one of my original figures. So what we have here is the original Luke Skywalker. This is my land speeder and Luke Skywalker from when I was a child. I still have all my figures, all the accessories, still have everything in pretty much mint condition. I kept everything in a vinyl carrying case, a Star Wars action figure carrying case, so that helped me keep everything contained and together. And so I hardly lost any weapons or anything. I had all that stuff. I even sent away for like the accessory packs where you got like backpacks and gas masks and all sorts of stuff. I still have all that stuff. So I have my original figures and some of my original vehicles. Unfortunately, when I got a little older, I ended up selling a lot of my stuff. And this is when there wasn't a whole lot of interest in Star Wars. So I didn't get top dollar for the stuff when I sold it. I remember selling an entire box of vehicles and some other stuff for like $35 for like a whole box. There was a Millennium Falcon in there, the troop transporter.
You had that too.
Yeah. And so I sold that entire box for $35 because I needed the money, and I had to like negotiate to get that. I was dealing with a store you're familiar with where they're like, get out of here with that stuff. And I'm like, come on, give me something.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Go
almost
start your own store.
Exactly. And, immediately regretted selling all that stuff. And so I've since bought back a couple of pieces that I really treasured. But yeah, I regret selling all that stuff. Do you still have some of your original vintage stuff?
I still have some, not a ton, but what happened with me was it had to be, I know it was before Return of the Jedi came out. So it was between Empire and Return of the Jedi. All of this, I probably got a ton of Empire Strikes Back stuff for Christmas. And I took a bunch of it up. We went camping. We used to go camping up north or in the UP at these cabins. And my sister and my cousin thought it would be great fun to take all of my figures and go hide them throughout the campground. Well, they didn't remember where they had hid them.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, I mean, I was upset about it, but I remember like my mom being very upset about it. But yeah, so I mean, I do have like some of my vehicles survived. They're not in great shape or anything. I don't think any of my accessories or original weapons or anything survived. And there might be a few, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
but I do have some of my original figures still.
Yeah, I love them. I treasure my original figures. I mean, they gave me so many hours of playtime. So I'm looking around for my top 10 list. Oh, there it is. I thought I forgot to bring it in. All right. You want to get into it?
Sure.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with number 10 and count up to 5, and then I'll throw it over to you to start at your 10 and work your way up.
Okay.
Then we'll go to 6, and then I'll do my top 5 after you do yours.
Okay.
So coming in at number 10, this is something I never owned, never bought. I kind of wish I would have, but at the time I was like, I don't know where I'm going to put this thing. But back in 2016, Fisher Price released a rideable land speeder for kids. Like a motorized land speeder that kids can ride in. And I was like, oh my God, this thing is awesome. Now, I don't have kids, so what am I going to do with this giant rideable land speeder? But I remember seeing it at Toys R Us. The retail price on it when it was new was about $500. And so I was kind of waiting to see if it was going to go on clearance, and I never did catch it on clearance. But then Toys R Us went out of business, and I never saw them again. And unfortunately, it has a 130-pound weight limit, so I couldn't ride in it anyways. Tim, what's your memories of seeing that rideable land speeder at Toys R Us?
Well, I had told people that I was going to buy it because Toys R Us was going out of business, and the one right by my work that I would stop into all the time had a pile of them. But I was waiting for it to get under a certain price because I was like, well, and so I'd go in there like almost every day. And, I should have just bought it when it got down to, I don't remember what it got down to, but I was like, well, I'll get it next time I come in. Might be down a little bit. Totally gone.
Yeah.
They were all gone. I was going to get it for my daughter, who's just 6 now. So that was, when did Toys R Us go out of business? 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah. Not too long after these hit the store. So that was 2016. So Toys R Us closed their doors like 2017, 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I just, I should have known better. I should have just got it, but I didn't.
I gotta think
that thing was amazing.
There gotta be a surplus someplace, because I remember seeing mountains of them at Toys R Us, and they didn't really move too well. So I'm thinking they're out there somewhere, but right now they sell for a pretty penny. Did it crack your top 10 at all, or no?
No, it didn't. I hadn't even thought about that one at all. Honestly,
I just thought it was so cool.
It is awesome, but my list is more of stuff that I actually played with, or not necessarily, but pretty much.
Yeah. All right, number 9 on my list. When Hasbro relaunched Star Wars in 97, I think it was. Started out
that would have been 95. Actually.
95, okay. They started out, with little figures and vehicles, and then they introduced their 12-inch line and released a ton of 12-inch figures. Their 12-inch figures were sort of hit and miss. Sometimes the likenesses were good, sometimes they were way off. So I focused mostly on the Imperial figures, and so I was buying the 12-inch figures of, stormtroopers and variations of that, and the Emperor and Darth Vader and all that stuff, and had quite the collection. And again, eventually, just to make money and thin out some space, I ended up selling a lot of that. But there was one piece I could not part with because I thought it was so spectacular. And I brought it here with me today.
Oh, yeah.
So
I do have that. I do have that somewhere.
This is the 12-inch Hasbro speeder bike with Biker Scout figure. This looks like something they would have used filming the movie. I mean, it's so accurate and so detailed. It's just spectacular. It just blows me away at the work that went into this thing. And so as I was selling off a lot of my collection, I just could not part with this. It's so beautiful, and I keep it on display at home. What were your thoughts of the Hasbro 12-inch line, and did you pick up any pieces and keep any pieces?
Oh, yeah. I still have quite a few. I still have that, like I said, put away somewhere. But I did have that at my old house. Excuse me. I did have that on display for quite a while, just because it was awesome. I mean, it compared to, like you said, compared to some of the other ones, it just wasn't. They just weren't. I don't know. They just weren't that good likeness wise.
Yeah.
They were kind of. A lot of them were just outright goofy looking.
Yeah,
Like,
I thought the
it's
stormtroopers
how,
looked off, and some of the other figures just didn't quite look right.
which didn't make any sense because when they started making them again, the smaller figures I thought were a lot more accurate.
Hmm.
But it seems like they would have just made bigger versions of them
Yeah,
to make the 12-inch figures, but they didn't. They made I mean, there was some that were great, and yeah, I didn't think about that at all. But yeah, that I guess I was like focusing more on stuff that I had as a kid.
oh, that's on my
But
list too.
but yeah, that is an amazing piece.
Yeah,
I'll have to dig that out.
so that came out in 2000. God, it's hard to believe that's 20 years ago now.
I know.
As part of the Power of the Force line. So that's number 9 on my list. Let's move on to number 8. Now, this entry, I don't know if this will be a popular entry on my list, but there's a reason for it. And the reason is that as a kid, when I was buying Star Wars figures, there were some things that they never released. And as a kid, I would wait for them to announce a new figure that hasn't been made yet. And next thing you know, the entire vintage line winds up, and I'm like, oh my God, there's stuff that they never gave us. One example is like Grand Moff Tarkin. We never got a vintage Grand Moff Tarkin figure in the line, and I don't understand that. They did some of the most obscure characters that appeared on screen, but a main character in the first Star Wars movie, Grand Moff Tarkin, never got a vintage figure. Now, they remedied that just a year or two ago by including a vintage-looking Grand Moff Tarkin in the Escape from Death Star board game. But I was always puzzled as a kid why we never got certain
Well, they did come out
figures.
with the one in like '97.
Oh, and the Power of the Force line. Yeah, I'm talking about the vintage line.
Oh,
There was
okay.
stuff I
Okay.
expected as a kid in the vintage line that we never got.
Right.
Another one of those pieces that ends up at number 8 on my list is a figure that never appeared in the vintage line, but eventually was included in the Power of the Force line, and I have it here with me today.
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars.
So what we have here is the Tusken Raiders Bantha, such an iconic
Yes.
creature from the original movie. We never got as a playable action figure toy as a kid, and I don't get that. I don't understand it. And so when Hasbro finally released this was in 1998 as part of the Power of the Force line. They finally released it, and I almost wept. As a grown man, I'm like, they finally released the Bantha.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And one other thing that what year did the Star Wars Holiday Special come out?
Oh, gosh, that was like 78, 79, something like that, yeah.
Okay, because for some reason in my head, I think it seems like this is probably wrong, but for some reason I think that I saw that before I actually saw the original Star Wars, and I was so upset. And I remember telling my best friend because he hadn't seen it, and so I was telling about it the next day, and I was just the part that like just really upset me was like that the stormtrooper ruined Chewbacca's kid's Bantha stuffed animal toy or whatever. He like tore that up.
Yeah, so
that was like that part like totally stuck with me as a kid.
So why would they make a Bantha for the holiday special but never release one to the public? I mean, there might have. I don't know if they ever did like a plush version or anything like that. I don't remember seeing it. But yeah, it wasn't until 1998 we finally got a Bantha toy. So it's not the most exciting entry on my list, but it means a lot to me because it was something I wanted as a kid, and I finally was able to add to my collection.
It actually makes me wonder what an original one would have looked like.
Yeah, would it had the fur, or would it just been sculpted plastic?
Probably not. It probably wouldn't have looked a whole lot like it. I mean, the original stuff kind of looked like stuff.
Yeah, right. Now, the fact that they put like the fur on it and everything, it looks great. I think it looks awesome.
And one thing that was really cool about that too is the way that you can like put the rider in there because the horns wrap around the legs instead of having the old trap door that the original ones had.
Yeah. They included that specific Tusken Raider that is able to sit on there, where
Yeah.
the vintage figures, yeah, they had the trap door mechanism where the legs went inside the live animal.
Yeah.
All right, so that's number 8 on my list. Now, continuing the theme of finally getting something that I never got as a kid, when they released the original vehicles, Star Wars vehicles in the 70s, they included the Land Speeder, X-Wing, TIE Fighter, and maybe Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. And one thing that bugged me as a kid was the scale of the wings on the TIE Fighter. It just didn't look right to me. It didn't look correct. And I guess they had to shorten them to get them into a box to put them on the toy store shelves. And it always bugged me that the toy didn't quite look like the TIE Fighter in the movie. So then when Hasbro re-releases, or recontinues the line and they're releasing figures, they release another TIE Fighter that has the same wings. And I'm like, with today's technology, you can't give us a accurate scale TIE Fighter.
Right.
Well, finally, they fixed it. And in 2005, originally released as a Target exclusive, they released the TIE Fighter with the correctly scaled wings. Tim, if you want to pick that up and show it to the camera, brought it with me today. They also corrected the back of it. Show the camera. Wow. Show the back of it to the camera. They actually corrected the back of it, too, because the original one had a battery compartment that also served. Yeah, that looks good. It actually served like you held it from the battery compartment in the back. So they fixed that to make the rear of the TIE Fighter accurate. They corrected the scale of the wings. And again, this thing looks like a model that might have been used for the filming of Star Wars. It is so spectacular. And I normally have that hanging from my ceiling with fishing line with a nice accurate scale X-Wing as well.
The wings pop off?
They do. Careful.
I won't do it.
But yeah, so the wings eject just like the vintage toy. And then, of course, the top opens. You could put a TIE Fighter pilot in there. And so the fact that Hasbro eventually got around to making the correct scale wings put this on my top 10 list. I was so excited that they finally released the correct TIE Fighter. Tim, what was your memory of seeing this finally hit stores?
I don't believe I ever had an original TIE Fighter. So my next door neighbor had it, so we played with it, but I don't know. It wasn't one of like my favorite things. So but I did buy that when it came out. I think I bought like 2 versions of the big wing one now. So
yeah, I think there's a white or a light gray version that came out later. That's the original.
I have like a
darker.
like a darker one.
Okay.
That it seems like it's like dark blue or dark gray or
Okay.
something like that. And I'm not even sure which one it is, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I think I might have bought that one too. But yeah, I mean it's I guess I didn't realize how much better it
It's
would
so
look.
much better. Yeah.
I just didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. But then when they actually showed the pictures of it, then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, that's
Now they
lot
did do eventually Hasbro did a 6-inch scale TIE Fighter as part of their Black Series, but it's not from A New Hope. It's not from the original trilogy. It has like red markings on it, I think from The Force Awakens or something. And so I'm still waiting for them to do a 6-inch scale TIE Fighter from the original movie. And, they have it. They just need to get the red markings off of it. So I will grab the 6-inch scale version if they ever release it. All right. And number 6 on my list, and then we'll throw it over to you, Tim. I'm convinced this has to be on your list. It's not something I ever owned, but I am kicking myself for not buying one. To kind of set this up, when I was a kid and Return of the Jedi came out, I was getting a little older. At this point, I think I was, 15 or something when Return of the Jedi came out. And I saw it in the theaters and I loved it, but I was at the point where I wasn't buying a lot of Star Wars toys anymore. And so Return of the Jedi didn't have a huge impact on my toy buying as a young person. And so I think when this was offered to us in recent years, I'm like, it's Return of the Jedi. I'm not going to get it. And like I said, now I'm kicking myself. It is the Jabba's sail barge from what was it? The Hasbro Vintage Collection.
You're talking about the HasLab one?
Yeah, the HasLab one. So the story behind this is that Hasbro said they would produce it if they got 5,000 orders, and they exceeded it. So once they exceeded 5,000 orders, they went ahead with the production. Now, again, the retail on it originally was $500. So that's another reason where I didn't feel like shelling out $500 for a toy. But when I saw it and it shipped and people started sharing pictures and images of it, I'm like, this is one of the most spectacular Star Wars toys of all time. It comes with Jabba the Hutt. It comes with a carded yak face figure, and it has compartments that open and all these details. It is absolutely spectacular. As I was compiling this list out of curiosity, I went on eBay to see what they're going for on eBay, and on average, they sell for about $1,500 now on eBay. So even though 500 seemed excessive at the time, you will not get it for less than $1,000 today. But yeah, it is a spectacular toy. What was your impression of Jabba's sail barge, and did it crack your top 10?
I have it as my number 9.
Okay.
And I agree with you. I'm kicking myself for not doing it because even though it was $500, they did have payment plans for it. So you didn't have to pay the whole 500 up front. You could have paid, I don't know what it was, but they did have plans. And yeah, so the 40 minutes of Return of the Jedi that they are on Tatooine and the whole Jabba the Hutt thing, that is probably my favorite sequence of all the movies.
Oh, wow.
And it's just yeah, I guess I didn't realize really what it was like because it was the very first thing that HasLab did.
Yeah.
And I guess I just didn't even realize like what it was or what it was going to be. And then after I saw people getting it and putting videos out or what, yeah, I immediately like regretted not doing it because
man, it is spectacular.
Yeah, it's one of the most awesome things that they probably made at all at this point, as far as the smaller figures go.
I agree. Have they announced any future offerings? Like, are they polling and?
Well, they do. I don't think that they're going right back to Star. Oh, I don't know, but it's like they want to do their other properties. It seems like before they go back to Star Wars.
Yeah, I'd like to see what they're going to offer in the future, whether it's a Death Star playset or something. But
you would think that would be that would make sense.
Yeah,
that would be the next thing that they would do. I don't know what else would generate that type of buzz.
All right, so that was 10 through 6. Tim, I'm going to throw it to you. If we talked about something, just sort of recap it. But let's start with number 10 on your list.
Okay, well, like I said, mine are more of probably things that are just probably have more of a sentimental value to me for the most part. Some things around here that I didn't necessarily have or own myself, but there's a reason that most of these are on here. So my number 10 is the original Dewback. And that is because that was one of the first things that, so I mean, I might have got some stuff in between that Chewbacca, but I remember like for my birthday, like one birthday where I actually started getting Star Wars stuff. So that was like one of the first things that I had that was just a non-figure. I just and I still have it somewhere. I don't think it's got it's still got the saddle. It doesn't have the
reins.
The reins, but so like they've re-released it how many times in different versions, and I think I buy it every single time because it's got. I mean, this is like a better one. Like the first one that I'm not sure which year this one was, but I like this one. But like the first one that they did in the Power of the Force line, wasn't that good. I don't know if you remember it. Like the head was too big and it was like,
Yeah, I remember. I know which one you're
It was
talking
like
about.
almost
Yeah.
on the ground.
That one was
But-
based on the special edition Dewback when they put in a CGI Dewback
Yeah.
to replace the
Right.
old puppetry or whatever.
Yeah, so it didn't
So,
really
yeah.
look like those. But
Yeah.
but anyway, that that was like a staple of my Star Wars playing forever. So, he'd always show up somehow, some way.
Yeah.
So
was,
that's why I have him as my
The
number
Dewback
10.
was one of the very first things I ever saw. It was in this magazine, and you can see a picture of it right there. Now, interestingly, when they released that vintage Dewback, which I had as a kid, I sold it in that box of stuff. I eventually bought it again recently because I missed it. I wanted it back in my collection. But the toy actually took some liberties because the Dewback that appeared in the movie was had like a furry torso. So it had like a reptilian head and like a furry body and then like a reptilian tail. It was sort of a mishmash. And so when they were going to do the toy of the Dewback, they were like, well, we can't do like this fur thing. So they just gave it like an entirely reptilian body. So
Well,
they took some liberties.
It does have the original does have like a little bit of fur,
Yeah,
like around
yeah.
the neck and across.
Yeah,
the
like a
back,
molded, yeah.
and like down the tail a little bit. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
all molded on. It's not like the bantha or anything.
Yeah, and that was
didn't really
released
do
pretty
that back
early
then.
on too. Like they knew that the kids were going to want creatures, so that was released really early on, like 78 or something. I think.
Yeah, like I said, that was
Yeah.
the first one. I mean, I have a picture of myself holding up my toys, and I didn't get a stormtrooper, but I had I had Greedo in there, but
yeah.
But yeah, those were like some of the first memories that I have. Besides that first Chewbacca that I got, but it seems like it was probably months in between.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. It might have been the same birthday. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I just remember getting that Chewbacca first.
I should have brought it in. I wish I would have brought it in. All right, that's a good one. All right, what you got next?
Well, I had to have this. Okay, so I had number 9 as the HasLab Jabba the Hutt's sail barge, like you had. So I had to have this. I mean, it's kind of cheating a little bit, but these figures are just so iconic. I had to like include them all. Just I put the whole original 12 series of the Kenner line on there.
Yeah, I almost did the same thing. But I don't know. I guess as I was narrowing down my top 10, I just felt like, that was like a whole bunch of different figures. But I totally
it
agree
is,
with you that
but-
that original 12 revolutionized everything. Prior to Star Wars, there was some Mego figures, there was G.I. Joes, but to accommodate the spaceships and everything, they had to shrink them down to these 4-inch figures, and so those original 12 revolutionized toys and allowed Kenner to produce the vehicles and everything to go with them.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I just remember looking at the back of the card and just thinking, oh, if I had this guy, I'd do this, and if I had this guy, I could do that, and whatever. And
Yeah.
it's just like, I mean, it's just, just they're just so iconic. I mean, there's just, if you see them somewhere, it's just, I don't know. It's just, and honestly, I didn't even really have a lot of I think my next door neighbor had probably all of them. And I remember he actually had the, I didn't put this on here, but he had the Cantina playset.
Yeah, I had that too. Yeah.
From, was that a JCPenney exclusive?
Well,
or-
there was a wide release version, and then I think there was a JCPenney version that was that the one that had the blue snaggletooth?
He had the blue snaggletooth.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's worth a fortune today.
I know.
I actually have a picture of me during one of my birthdays holding the Cantina playset in its original box, getting it for my birthday. Yeah, those were great. But that was like that was the second wave. So you had the 12 figures, then there was that second wave that had Greedo, Hammerhead, Snaggletooth, and Walrus Man. And
That's right. That's right.
that
Okay,
came-
so yeah, so it probably was like a whole separate birthday by the time that I got my other Star Wars figures.
yeah.
So I remember I had I had the Planet of the Apes Fortress, but I didn't have any Planet of the Apes figures.
Yeah.
So I think that's where that little Chewbacca lived for a long time, and then it was probably destroyed by the time I got any of my other Star Wars figures.
Yeah.
But
I'm curious about the thought process that went into selecting those original 12 figures. Most of them make sense, but I was always surprised that they included that Death. At the time, he was called the Death Squad
Commander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting choice for the first 12. Darth Vader, Stormtrooper. I guess they felt they needed more villains to fight against the good guys, so they picked just sort of a background character as one of the original 12. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, but I still have my original 12. I absolutely love them, and that's a great entry on your list.
I just figured, I mean, it's kind of like all encompassing, but you got to have those on there.
Yeah. I mean, I think those original figures would crack any greatest toys list, period.
Yeah.
Like if you're compiling a list of the greatest toys in history, those Star Wars figures are up near the top. So, yeah.
They got to be. So my number 7 is Slave One, the original Slave One.
Yeah.
Boba Fett's ship, if anybody doesn't know. And kind of the reason I had to have this on here too was because it was out, and I had stuff, but I didn't really have probably any of like the big vehicles or anything. But I remember I bet my dad on a fight on a boxing match. And he thought that Slave One was just one of the regular figures, so he's like, "Oh yeah, no problem." And I ended up winning. So I remember like coming home like every day from school, like thinking, hey, when am I going to get this? And then I remember like walking in one day, and I looked over, and it was like on top of they just had it sitting on top of the couch, and I was like, "Oh." So I mean, one of the things too was like it was almost like a competition between me and my neighbor to see who could get what first. So that was like, that'll come into play later too. But so like I got that way before him.
Wow.
And it was like, and plus Boba Fett was just so cool.
Yeah.
And
ship.
Slave One was just so cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the cool things about the ship design in the Star Wars movies is they would think outside of the box. Not everything was shaped like a plane. The TIE fighters had the big solar panels. And from what I read, Slave One was based on a street lamp. Like someone looked up and saw a street lamp and used that design for a ship. But instead of having it fly horizontally, they had it fly vertically, which is unlike anything we saw.
Yeah.
It was such a cool ship. Now I never owned the vintage version of it. Again, I stopped buying Star Wars toys by the time those later vehicles were coming out. But I did when Hasbro started re-releasing them in the 90s. I ended up getting it later in the 90s. But yeah, and it came with a little Han Solo and carbonite, right? Like
it did.
Yeah,
it did. And just the way that they definitely could have cut some corners on that, and they didn't, because you would there was like a piece of the ship that you would take off, and then it was almost like a slab or something that you'd clamp Boba Fett in, and then you'd push a thing, and then he would go up into the cockpit.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have easily just had it where you just put him in the cockpit, and none of that stuff opened, and then you'd pull like the ramp out, and then you could like store the carbonite Han Solo in there.
Yeah.
And it was just
cool toy.
Yeah, they really stepped it up.
You don't still have that, do you?
I do. I mean, it's not complete.
Yeah. You still have the Han Solo and carbonite?
That I don't know. I don't know.
You're gonna go home and start digging through your stuff.
If I have that or not. Yeah. I probably do somewhere. Whether it's with it, I doubt it's with it. But I probably do. If I dug through my garage hard enough and long enough, I'm sure it would turn up somewhere.
Yeah. All right, I'm peeking at your list over there at number 6. I'm gonna play a little clip for you because this is on my list too.
All right.
The Empire's landing.
It's new AT-AT, the all-terrain armored transport from Kenner. Batteries not included, action figures each sold separately. You can make AT-AT walk. Its legs are big enough to crush obstacles. You can move AT-AT's head and pretend to scan for rebels. AT-AT has a cockpit for Imperial Commander and AT-AT driver and laser machine guns. When you push a button to fire the laser cannons, you activate battle lights and sounds. There's even a troop compartment. New AT-AT from Kenner's Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection.
Now, that's number 3 on my list. I think it's not only one of the greatest Star Wars toys of all time, but remember sitting in the theater, seeing the AT-AT for the first time when the rebels are like jumping into the trenches and like waiting for these things to arrive, and they're really tiny in the distance, and then someone picks up the binoculars and they're looking, and it starts at their feet, and then the binoculars go up to the head, and you're sitting in the theater like, what the hell is that?
Yep.
I think it's one of the greatest movie moments of all time. From the moment the AT-AT attack starts to the end is such a thrilling movie moment, and the AT-ATs were just so cool.
Yep. Yeah. As far as the toy goes, I never had it myself. I mean, I've gotten later versions of it,
Right,
but
me too.
the original version, no. I want to say my best friend probably got it for Christmas that year, and so I was able to play with it. And that, I mean, everybody wanted that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like the huge thing that everybody wanted that Christmas.
It was awesome, man.
Yeah, just I mean, they, really scale wise, it was not. I mean, to make it scale wise, I mean the foot itself. I mean, crushed the land speeder or the snow speeder.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really have it in actual scale, but still,
Yeah.
I mean that's another one that just if you see at somebody, if you see at a toy show or whatever, it's still like a coveted thing. I mean, but I was happy with the ones that I got later on. I mean, they did improve it. They did make the bigger version of it.
Yeah, and I thought long and hard about getting that, and I ended up passing on that one. I bought the 1997 version, I think it is. I bought that one and had it on display. Ended up giving that away to a kid. But yeah, I thought about buying that bigger, more impressive version, but I never got around to it.
I do have that. I sold another one that I had, the smaller version of it, but yeah, I still have the big version of it. And I mean, there's so much space in it. It doubled as like a carrying case, playset, vehicle, whatever. And the cool thing about that is, I mean, you could like, it was almost like a puppet or an animatronic with the way that you could move the head around, and then the way that the cannons fired, they'd light up and go back and forth and make all the noises and stuff.
I have a dream that maybe someday we'll see it in 6-inch scale in the Black Series.
Oh, man. I don't know about that.
I mean, they'd have to cheat the scale a little bit, I think, like they did with the vintage toy. But even if they cheated it, it would still have to be 4 to 5 feet tall. And
I mean, that could be something that HasLab would do.
Yeah, I would snatch that up at any price. That'd be amazing. Yeah, all right, so that's your 10 through 6. Let's move on to our 5 through 1. Number 5 on my list.
It's the new Boba Fett Star Wars large-size action figure from Kenner. Darth Vader sold separately.
Capture them alive! I'm the best bounty hunter in the whole galaxy. That's why you got the job.
Boba Fett has a see-through helmet with play rangefinder to locate your objective. You can move his legs, knees, arms, even wrists and elbows. His backpack unit is removable.
You have your mission. Good luck. I don't need luck. I'm the best.
New Boba Fett Star Wars large-size action figure from Kenner. Darth Vader sold separately.
So, the 12-inch Boba Fett, one of my prized possessions. As you can see, still has all his accessories, the Wookiee scalps, his blaster, cape, backpack. He's a little dusty. And he's got the scope that you can look through like the $6 million man. What I love about Boba Fett, I mean, not only was he cool and mysterious and everything, but Hasbro Kenner had released the 12-inch line, and they were pretty cool. They were pretty detailed. You see Vader over there. But they weren't all that articulated. They have articulation at the neck, shoulders, and hips. But check out Boba Fett. His knees are articulated, elbows, wrists. He's so much more improved over the other 12-inch figures that had come out before him, and just the fact that he's one of my favorite Star Wars characters, and the likeness is just spot on. I mean, it is just looks fantastic. So Kenner just knocked it out of the park with Boba Fett, and this may have hit stores before we saw him in movies, because I know the 4-inch figure, was the mail away figure, and then they did this, and they were really kind of selling Boba Fett before the movie came out, because we had seen him in the holiday special, in the animated sequence in the holiday special. So, given the fact that he's one of my favorite Star Wars characters and part of the 12-inch line, this is number 5 on my list. Did Boba Fett 12-inch figure rank on your list?
Did not, and I will tell you why. It's amazing, but okay, so I don't even think I wanted that because I didn't care about the 12-inch figures, and I didn't care about I also had some from the micro collection. I didn't care about all I wanted was the regular line.
Yeah.
I did have some, and one of them is on my list, but by the time they were advertising that, I mean, if I would have got it, I would have been happy, I'm sure. But I don't remember anybody having that, any of my friends having that, or any. I mean, it's possible, I just don't remember. So no, it did not make my list. But so that had to be close to the end of the original 12-inch line, right? Or did they continue?
Boba Fett came out, and then I think IG-88 was the first figure that was released as Empire Strikes Back packaging. I think the first version of Boba Fett said Star Wars on it.
Okay.
Then they did Empire figures, and then he was the sole Empire figure, and they had some other figures planned for the line. I think Lando was going to get released, and then they had different outfits and stuff they were going to do. But because of people like you who wasn't interested in the 12-inch line, the whole thing just didn't sell as well and failed.
Did you have the 12-inch IG-88?
No, I wish I did, because that sells for a pretty penny.
I was going to ask you, why did that one have the extra articulation like Boba Fett?
I think that does have extra articulation. I don't know about the legs, but I think the elbows and stuff bent on IG-88.
Okay. I have the later version of the 12-inch, which I think was pretty much the same mold.
Yeah.
As that one. So
yeah.
I do have a 12-inch one.
Yeah, that came out by Hasbro.
Power of the Force.
Yeah. So I love Boba Fett. I could never part with it. It saved my purge, or it saved from a purge. I just kept it. I couldn't part with it. Same thing with my 12-inch Darth Vader over there. I just couldn't part with these figures. I'll have them till I die. All right, so that is number 5 on my list. Let's continue the Boba Fett love.
From Kenner's Star Wars collection comes the Stormtrooper, the Sand People, and all 20 action figures, including new Hammerhead, Snaggletooth, and more, each sold separately. And now, Boba Fett, Star Wars villain with his laser rifle. Boba Fett is not yet available in stores, but you can get him free with 4 proofs of purchase from any Star Wars action figures. Details on specially marked packs at participating stores. Offer ends May 31st. Star Wars action figures sold separately from Kenner.
So think about that. As a kid, I'm buying my Star Wars figures. You see that mail-in offer where the prototype Boba Fett that was on the package looked a little funky, didn't really look like Boba Fett, but they were like, cut 4 proofs of purchase, put it in the mail, and you'll get it in 4 to 6 weeks, which seemed like an eternity for me. Mm-hmm. And so eventually it shows up in the mail, and I'm like, the rocket, what's the deal? It's glued in place. Instead of the rocket firing mechanism, the story goes that some kid choked on a Battlestar Galactica toy. He fired the missile into his throat and choked on it, ruining it for the rest of us.
Stupid kid.
Dumb kids. And so when Boba Fett arrived, the missile was glued in place. Now, there are legendary prototypes that have surfaced of the rocket firing Boba Fett that is probably the holy grail of Star Wars collecting. Mm-hmm. I remember watching some collectibles show. I think it was that Jordan Hembro, I think is his name, where he went into a comic book store that used to be located near the Kenner factory in Cincinnati. And he's like, did you ever have a prototype Boba Fett come through here? And he goes, yeah, I think we have one. And he got like a shoebox, came back and pulled one out of the box. Now, I don't know if that was staged for the cameras or what, but imagine finding an authentic rocket-firing Boba Fett figure. Like I said, the holy grail of Star Wars collecting. So I was excited to, get my Boba Fett in the mail. A little disappointed that its rocket didn't fire, but one of my all-time favorite figures. Now, that was in 1979. I think it was, yeah, originally offered in 1979. Hasbro finally made good, and I have it here with me. This here is Hasbro making good on the rocket-firing Boba Fett. Now, the rocket's a little longer. I don't know if you see it in the package there, so kids don't choke on it.
Now,
but
what year was this? I have it, but I don't remember what year
it came out in 2010, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think this was a mail away too. You sent away for this, if I remember correctly.
Was it?
I think so.
Yeah. I believe you're correct.
Yeah. And so, 30, 40 years, 30 years after not getting a rocket-firing Boba Fett, this guy arrives in the mail.
They use the same mold.
Yeah, so they use the vintage Boba Fett mold, so it's not a new version of the figure, it's a vintage version of the figure. So it finally arrived in the mail, and I could die a happy man. I have my rocket-firing Boba Fett. I don't know what this goes for on eBay, but again, it's I love it.
Yeah.
So did you send away for rocket-firing Boba Fett?
I don't remember how I got my original Boba Fett, but I had it pretty early on, and same thing. I was like, I remember getting it and thinking, that it was lame that it didn't have a firing rocket. I actually have Boba Fett. The Boba Fett mail away is my number 4. Is that what yours was?
Yes, number 4. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just because Boba Fett was so cool, even though it didn't have the firing rocket, he was just a cool figure.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I don't remember if I mailed away for it or not, but I do remember having it pretty early on with my other figures. So I think I might have. Now, one story I have is I don't remember when that arrived, but that following Christmas, after I'd gotten Boba Fett in the mail, he had been released on typical packaging like all the other figures. And I remember my mom, for Christmas, had gotten me some Star Wars figures, and one of them was a carded Boba Fett. But to get it in my stocking, she folded the cardboard in half to cram it into my stocking. And I remember as a kid thinking, if she didn't fold it in half, I would keep this one in the packaging because I have my mail-away Boba Fett. Imagine if I would have kept that Boba Fett on its card if she didn't crease it. That's one of the more valuable carded figures out there. It's worth, $1,000 or something today, if not more. So I almost had a carded Boba Fett as a kid, but because she had creased it to fit into the stocking, I ended up with 2 loose Boba Fett figures. So, if only. Now, did you ever have to have any discussions? I don't want to say arguments, but discussions with anybody that claimed that they had a rocket firing Boba Fett? Because
I've heard people claim it, but there's only a handful in existence.
I know. I had a friend that swore he got one, and then when that finally came out, I remember taking it over to him to show him. I was like, no, this is the first one, besides the prototypes.
Yeah, nobody received one in the mail. Only there's the J hook and then the L hook and stuff like that, but nobody got one in the mail. I think it's what they call the Mandela effect, where people seem to remember things that never happened, and nobody got a rocket-firing Boba Fett in the mail. And I'm sure somebody might be listening to this going, no, I had one, but
exactly.
Give me some evidence. Give me some proof.
Exactly.
And I know people can fabricate them now. They say it's fairly easy to fabricate a rocket-firing Boba Fett, so you can't even believe what you see anymore. So
right.
But that was a great moment getting Boba Fett in the mail. Number 3 on my list is the AT-AT, which we talked about. Now we're down to my top 2 greatest Star Wars toys of all time. Here is number 2.
Here's the new Star Wars Death Star space station that you put together. Action figures each sold separately.
Darth Vader's firing a laser cannon. It's been hit. He's afterload. Take the elevator. Hurry! Now cross the light bridge. You won't escape me. Jump, Luke. Oh, no. The trash compactor. There's a trash monster. The wall's closing. Save!
Kenner's new Star Wars Death Star space station. Action figures each sold separately.
So that's number 2 on my list. That playset was spectacular. I remember that big, tall box that it came in, and you had to assemble it. It had the cardboard backdrops, the ejecting gun, all those cool features. Probably the coolest of all was the trash compactor, which came with this little guy, the Dianoga trash monster. This is not my original one that I owned. I did have one for the longest time, but that ended up in the box of stuff that I ended up selling. So I purchased this again recently, and this actually cost a little bit of money.
Oh, I bet.
But I wanted it to display with my vintage action figures, so I repurchased this one. But yeah, that Death Star playset was by far the coolest playset Kenner or I think Hasbro ever offered, and I don't know what happened to mine. I think it got lost in a move. I had it for the longest time, and then it was like in pieces in a bag or something. And I think during a move, it might have gotten thrown out or something. And like I said, the trash monster survived because I think I kept it in the vinyl carrying case for a long time. But everything else just sort of vanished. And then about 10, 15 years ago, a friend of mine had his from his childhood, and he's like, "You want it?" I was like, "Sure." So he gave me his Death Star playset, but it was in really bad condition. Like a dog had chewed the cannon and stuff like that. So I ended up selling that on eBay for a few bucks. But yeah, the Star Wars Death Star playset is, I think, one of the greatest Star Wars toys ever made. Did it crack your top 10?
Yeah, of course. It's actually my number 3. And the only reason that it's not higher than that is because I never owned it myself.
Oh, wow.
My next door neighbor had it. That was like one of the first things. He had the Cantina playset, and he had the Death Star, and I think he had the original Land Speeder. Those were like some of the original things that he had. So that was like the original Star Wars thing that I played with was that Death Star.
Yeah.
And I was probably 7, and I think he was 2 years younger than me, so that thing got trashed pretty quick, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely that's what sticks out in my head is like one of the greatest Star Wars, Kenner Star Wars things that they've ever made, and I can't believe that they have not made a new version of it.
Yeah, I mean the elevator was great.
I take that back. I mean, they did do those
the
little
mini
playsets,
yeah.
but other than that,
yeah,
why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would have been fine when Hasbro started re-releasing Star Wars toys. I would have been fine if they would have released sections of the Death Star that you can then assemble to make a bigger Death Star. But they were all kind of standalone playsets that didn't really connect to anything. So,
right, and you would think with like the Build-A-Figures that they do like in the Marvel line and some of the other lines that they would have done something like that.
Yeah,
but not yet. Yeah. I mean, there's the Lego version that sells for a ton of money, and but yeah, you would think that they would have done some form of it.
Yeah, modern version of
again.
it. Yeah, hopefully we'll still see it. There's some pretty cool playsets on the horizon. There's the Bespin Carbon Freeze playset coming out. And then they're doing the Tantive 4 playset, which looks spectacular. That's another one of those things I should have gotten as a kid that we never got. Mm-hmm. So maybe a Death Star playset is in the future. We'll see. Now, I've shared this story with you before. I used to buy Toy Fair magazine, which was a spinoff of the Wizard comic book price guide. Mm-hmm. And they did I think it was top 50 Star Wars toys of all time. And they left the Death Star playset off their list.
Oh, I'm very familiar.
And I lost my mind. I sent them a letter. I think it was an email. And I was jokingly angry, and I laid into them and said, if you guys would stop going on your drunken benders, maybe you wouldn't make these kind of mistakes. And they printed my letter word for word in Toy Fair, criticizing them for leaving it off their list. That was inexcusable. If you're putting together a top 50 list of Star Wars toys, you do not leave off the Death Star playset. They had like a modern version of Han Solo in Endor trench coat on the list. How do you list that before the Death Star?
What was their response? I remember all this.
Said
but
I think their response was, "We screwed up." I mean, and then they
okay.
posted a picture of it with my letter. But I think they realized they screwed up, that you cannot leave that off the list.
No.
It's great.
So again, I'm kicking myself because when so probably around 95, when the Power of the Force line first came back around, there was a store in Rochester. I believe it's still there, but it's in a different place. But they had a bunch of old toys, and they had a box, and I don't know if it was complete or not, but it was complete enough, and it was not over $100.
Yeah.
I don't think. And I would see it, and I would see it, and I would see it, and I would talk to my first wife, who was also a big Star Wars collector, and she was like, "Oh, let's just buy it," and then we talk ourselves out of it. And finally, it was gone, and I've never seen another one in good condition for that cheap since then.
Yeah.
But
all right. Let's move on to number 1 on my list of greatest Star Wars toys ever. This is also probably my greatest Christmas gift ever.
From Kenner's Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, it's Millennium Falcon that you put together. Batteries not included.
Nice landing, Han Solo. Uh-oh, come on, Chewbacca. Stormtroopers are coming.
Action figures each sold separately.
Got him on radar. I'll fire the laser cannon.
There's even a hidden storage hatch.
Ready for takeoff. Jump to light speed. We're gone. On to the Death Star.
Millennium Falcon from Kenner's Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection. Action figures each sold separately.
Now, this commercial that I played says Empire Strikes Back. I'm fairly certain there's a Star Wars version, but it was not released with those original vehicles. It came about a year or so later, after the initial toys were released. But when I, as a kid, found out that they were releasing the Millennium Falcon, it was just like a must-have. I imagine every kid my age was like begging for the Millennium Falcon for Christmas. So imagine getting that big box on Christmas morning, ripping the paper off of it to reveal the Millennium Falcon. It was the greatest Christmas gift ever. It was like my Red Ryder BB gun. And the reason I place this above the Death Star is because the Death Star is kind of stationary, and, your figures, come to the Death Star. But the Millennium Falcon, you could run around the house, you could run around the backyard. There were all these cool features, from the Smugglers hatch, to cockpit, to the gun turret.
They even had the what is it? The monsters that fight. They even had that
the Minox?
No, the table for the game.
Oh, the chess, the little chessboard,
whatever that's called.
Now, I don't think the first version had the chess table, but not like the little monsters.
Oh, no, I know that,
came
but I'm
later.
just saying they had.
But it did
table.
have the chess table and a little bench there. It was, in my opinion, the greatest Star Wars toy ever because of its playability and its features, and there are electronic sounds and I think lights and all that stuff. And again, I regret selling it in the box of stuff that I sold. And Hasbro re-released it in the 90s, and then they did what people call the BMF, the Big Millennium Falcon, which I regret not getting that one. Hitting stores right now is the Smugglers run Millennium Falcon, which has a retail price of about $400, I think, on it.
Why is that?
I'm not sure why the price is $400, but it is spectacular. The weathering, the detail, the features. It has swappable radar dishes, one with the classic round dish and then the modern rectangle dish. It is just absolutely spectacular. And if I ever do see it at Target or something, I'm going to have to think long and hard about grabbing it, because the Millennium Falcon, I think, is the coolest ship in the entire franchise, piloted by Han Solo, and the toys they just have so many playable features. So did the Millennium Falcon make the cut?
It did not.
Not your top 10. That is shocking.
It is my honorable. It's an honorable mention, because I'm sure somebody had. I mean, I vaguely remember playing with it, but I don't remember my next door neighbor having it. I never had it. Maybe one of my cousins who were watching had it. I don't necessarily remember, but I mean, I do remember playing with it, but very vaguely, and it just wasn't, and I don't know. I don't remember if I asked for it. I'm sure I probably asked for it, but I never got it. So I just never had that. I got later versions of it. I got the Power of the Force version of it, and it's cool, but it's just I think because as a kid I never had it, and I don't really remember playing with it a whole lot, that I just didn't have that connection to it.
Man,
But
just
I
love
agree though, because I mean that's the iconic vehicle from the original movie. I
Yeah.
mean, so I'm sure that was the one that everyone wanted.
Oh yeah. Oh,
But
such a big deal. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of knew too what I kind of had realistic expectations of what my parents would be willing to buy for me. So a lot of times I just didn't even bother to ask for anything like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, a lot of my Star Wars toys as a kid, I bought myself. I had a paper route, so I bought my own figures, bought a lot of my toys myself. But those big ones, I had to wait for Christmas or birthday, and I'm amazed my mom got me a lot of those. From the original Star Wars movie, I had most of that stuff. I had the droid factory. I had the cantina. I had a lot of the toys from the first Star Wars movie. And like I said, when Empire came out, I had some of the earlier stuff that came out. I had some of the figures that came out. I think I got the Probot turret playset, the cardboard AT-AT. You remember the cardboard AT-AT playset? I had
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And then I kind of lost interest in toy collecting. But I'm amazed how much I had as a kid. It was pretty awesome. All right, so
I'm
go ahead.
almost surprised because I don't know. I don't remember you telling me that you had all these.
Oh yeah.
You told me the story about the Space Knight,
Oh right.
but so I'm kind of surprised that
I'm glad
that
you
did
brought
get all
that
this.
up because prior to getting my 12-inch Darth Vader over there, my mom knew how much I loved Star Wars, and so she would try to get me Star Wars stuff. And I remember getting on Christmas morning, thinking I'm getting a 12-inch Darth Vader and ripping it open, and it was the Dark Space Knight or Dark Knight or something.
Space Knight. I think they were
Yeah.
they like MARS or something,
Something
or am
like
I
that.
thinking of something else?
And it was a knockoff Darth Vader that kind of looked like him, and I'm like, this ain't Darth Vader. I had it for the longest time and played with it. I don't know whatever happened to him, but yeah, I got the knockoff Darth Vader before I got the real Darth Vader, and my mom didn't know the difference. She thought it was Darth Vader. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
All right, let's
I don't remember getting any knockoff Star Wars toys, but I did get knockoff Transformers and some other things. So
Well, I did,
So I hear you.
I did buy toys that were inspired by Star Wars. I had Micronauts and stuff like that, and some Battlestar Galactica
Micronauts
stuff.
weren't out before Star Wars.
That's a good question. I want to say Micronauts came out afterward because
Okay.
that 4-inch scale, wasn't popular until
Yeah,
Star
that's
Wars
right.
came out. So
That's right.
yeah,
Okay. I had a few Micronauts.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to your top 5. Let's see if you have any surprises
Okay.
on there.
They might be surprised to you, but my number 5 is actually the 12-inch Darth Vader.
That one right there.
Yes, because I did get for either Christmas or a birthday, I got them all at the same time. I got the 12-inch Stormtrooper, I got the 12-inch Darth Vader, and I got the 12-inch Chewbacca.
Wow.
And the 12-inch Chewbacca is awesome too. I think I probably still have that. I think I might even still have that one, but the top of the helmet came off. But just but unfortunately, I remember like opening it and going to play with it, and I lost the lightsaber immediately. Which it's bizarre because I mean I was up in my room and it just disappeared, and
Wow.
I never found it again. Even
Go
when
ahead and pick them up. Show them to the camera.
we moved, and it still never showed back up. But
Yeah, you know what?
so-
That you reminded me. That's not the original lightsaber that came with him because mine
Okay.
vanished as well, and I'm very suspicious because I kept everything in a toy box, and so he was in the toy box with his lightsaber, and I remember one day going into my toy box and the lightsaber was gone; it had vanished. So I don't know if somebody stole it or what the deal was, but that haunted me for the longest time. And then years later, I don't know if it was a birthday or Christmas, But my brother gave me a gift, and it looked like a watch. It was in a little watch thing. And I unwrapped it, and I opened up the watch case, and in it was the lightsaber. He had replaced my lost lightsaber as a
Oh, really?
Christmas gift. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's it
So,
right there.
so that's the replacement lightsaber that he got me. Now that's an original vintage lightsaber, not the
Okay.
one that I had as a kid, but that completed Darth Vader again. And I love that figure. I think the likeness is incredible. I love
Yeah.
the way the cloth cape falls. The details are amazing on it. Yeah. It's I've had that for 40 plus years.
Yeah, I kind of went back and forth with the Chewbacca or that, because the Chewbacca was pretty awesome too. I mean, it had the cartridges that you could take out of the bandolier.
Oh wow.
Did you?
I didn't know the cartridges were removable.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
you took them out and you put them on the side of the bowcaster.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I went back and forth, but I decided on Darth Vader just because he's so. I remember taking the Stormtrooper, and the Stormtrooper was cool. He had like rubber hands that were like jointed for some reason, and so you could like it would like really hold like the guns, but for whatever reason they made it with like a harder plastic, and the legs were hollow. So I remember I took it. I think the whole body was like hollow, but it was like a harder plastic than the other ones. So I had taken it to school, and for some reason I had thrown it up in the air, and they had these big like logs, these sticking in the ground on our playground. So my Stormtrooper goes up, comes down on its leg, and its leg just shatters.
Oh my God.
So
you had lousy luck as a kid.
I did. I should have known because the playground was not my friend, and it definitely was not friend to Star Wars toys, because I remember I got my Yoda from Empire Strikes Back that I remember like begging my parents for. And like I remember like we were at I want to say it was the Oakland Mall, and it was I had already seen Empire Strikes Back. They hadn't, but I was like I remember like walking through, I want to say it was Kresge's maybe. And I found it, and I'm like trying to sell it to him. I'm like, look, he comes with a snake. He's got a belt. He's got a walking
cloth,
stick.
yeah.
He's got a cloth thing. So finally, they're like, okay, whatever. So I take it to school the next day, send it down the slide. Immediately, I go to pick it up, and his face just flattened out.
It melted
Going
on
down
the slide.
Yep. I still have that one too. I still have it. I should have found it and showed you, but yeah,
Man.
like the nose and the mouth were just boop, flattened
Wow.
out. Not horribly, but
Yeah.
but
still.
enough.
But that's heartbreaking as a
So.
kid. Like, oh no,
I know.
my Yoda.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So
funny.
and it's not like nowadays kids would probably just be like, hey, I need a new one. And,
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it wasn't like that.
Yeah, you don't go back to the parents and go, I ruined my toy,
No.
give me another one. They were like, nah,
No.
sorry.
Right.
Should have taken care of it.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
I believe well, I won't say, but okay, so my number 2 is the Han Solo electronic blaster that came out probably. I mean, that was like one of the original toys that I had
Yeah.
as well, and nobody else on the block had that. I remember like my next door neighbor being super jealous of it, to the point
Wow.
where he had to have he had his dad, who like had a workshop in his garage. He like got a piece of wood, traced it, and
Traced your gun
traced
and
my gun. Asked me if it was okay, and I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
okay. So it made like a wood version for him, and then that one turned out pretty cool too.
Yeah,
So then
yeah.
I'd let him play with it. But as a dumb kid, here's another thing: the battery. When the battery started to die, finally, instead of just going to my parents and saying, "Hey, can you replace the batteries?" I thought it was a good idea to drop it on the concrete to get it to work again. So I did that and did that and did that and did that. And I don't remember if I don't remember if it ended up breaking or
That's hilarious.
I think finally it like broke, partially, but
Now was that blaster black, or did it come in
It was
funky
black.
colors? Because
it
today
was black. The only
every
problem
weapon
with
is
it was
bright
it said,
orange.
oh yeah, no, it looked exactly like it. Besides, I
Wow.
think there was like a Star Wars. I think it said Star Wars on the
Yeah.
side. But other than that, it looked exactly like his.
What's amazing, even though today's weapons are bright orange and white, so they're not mistaken for real weapons, but the detail is so accurate on these that there are people who buy these toys, paint them, and they
look
look like
exact.
props from the movie. I have a
Yeah.
Stormtrooper blaster at home that I bought online, and someone just took the toy, painted it, weathered it, and marked it up quite a bit, and I bought it, and it looks like a prop from the movie.
Oh, I will say that my neighbor ended up getting the Stormtrooper. They had like a rifle that
Yeah.
came out that was just as cool.
Yeah.
It's probably not cooler than the Han Solo blaster, but close enough.
Yeah.
But it had like these holes in the side, and then when you'd shoot it, it was like yellow. It was like yellow and black striped. So it
Yeah.
looked like it was doing something, and it made the noises. But that was
Yeah.
just as cool.
Yeah.
I mean, close enough. But so I think he
Yeah.
probably got that after the wooden version of my gun. But at that point, I don't even know if my gun was still working by the time
Yeah.
I got that. I mean, it might have been. I don't know.
That's awesome.
But anyway, yeah, I don't remember ever seeing anybody else having that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd
at
never
least
owned
nobody on
anything
my
like
block
that,
or
no.
nobody in my class
Yeah.
or anything.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, that was
Cool.
That was cool.
And number one on your list?
So as I mentioned, my my favorite scene in probably all the movies is the Jabba the Hutt scene.
I gotta get you a drum roll.
Oh yeah. So,
So
my
Jabba the
number
Hutt,
one
your
is
favorite
the
scene.
Jabba the Hutt playset from Return of the Jedi.
The original.
The original one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What? So
Yeah.
there was Jabba. There was
It
like a
came with-
base. What else came with it?
Not a whole lot, honestly, but it came with Salacious Crumb,
Okay.
and you'd move the head, and his tail would move. I think the arms were articulated, and then you could like have him hold his pipe, and then there was like a bowl. It didn't come with frogs, but
Yeah,
it
but
was
that's-
for the
yeah.
same thing. And then so if you took him off, basically it was kind of supposed to be the Rancor pit. You could put like figures under him.
Yeah.
So you could like turn, there was like stone heads. You could turn those on the front of it. So it would like lift it
Wow.
up. And then you put it was supposed to be the Rancor pit, but
Yeah.
but
But that's a
it was
cool
like this
feature,
deep,
though.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So I picked that because that was, I mean, I remember I specifically remember getting that for Christmas that year, along with a couple other things. And I remember calling my next door neighbor and being like, "Hey, did you get this? Nope. Did you get this? Nope. Did you get this? Nope." And he didn't get that. So I was
Wow.
like, "Yes." You know? So I played with that a lot, and then that was like one of the last things that I really like played with, and
Yeah.
then it was pretty much done after that.
Yeah.
That was probably like one of the last Star Wars things I even got at that point until I started collecting as an adult. But
Did you get any of those late Power of the Force figures that are worth a ton of money today, like
no,
Yak
sir,
Face or
no, sir. And
Imperial Gunner's worth a ton of
well,
money?
I know I've told you the story before that I walked into Toys R Us.
Uh,
They had them all there.
wow.
But we had moved on to the small GI Joes at that point. They had like every single one of them. I remember
Wow.
looking at them thinking, maybe I should get this guy because he's cool, Yak Face. And,
Yeah.
I think Anakin and some of the other ones. And then I was like, they're just putting a coin in here to try to sell these. I'm not getting these. Like, that's just like a gimmick just to get you to buy
Yeah.
these.
Those are
So
some
I
of the
didn't
most
buy 'em, and-
valuable
I know.
figures today, and
I know.
by then, I just wasn't buying toys at that age. Jedi came out in what 83.
83.
So at this point, I'm 17. I'm
Okay.
not buying toys
Yeah, I
at
was still
17.
11, but
So
yeah.
I missed out on those, and those are worth a fortune. A friend of mine, Chris Lamphere, he told me a story where he went on a mission to get one of every original vintage figure, and he told me a story how he went to a garage sale, saw like a shoebox with some Star Wars figures in it, picked up the shoebox, rifled through it, pulled out a blue snaggletooth, said, "How much for this?" And they were like, "I don't know, $2." And he bought a blue snaggletooth for $2 out of a shoebox at a garage sale. That stuff doesn't happen to me, man.
I was able to play with the blue snaggletooth because that is the version of the cantina that my next door
Yeah.
neighbor had. But
Wow.
even that, I remember like thinking when we saw the movie finally, we're like, that's not accurate. That doesn't
Right.
look anything like it. So then when the regular snaggletooth came out, who knows what happened to that?
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
ever remember seeing it again.
Right. Wow.
Um,
I do remember when I was in school, I remember a friend of mine who collected Star Wars stuff. He came in with like 8 stormtroopers and sold them to me. I don't remember what I paid for them, but that was like an instant army builder because at the time I think I may have had 1 or 2 stormtroopers, and today I have 10. Imagine a kid with 10 stormtroopers, man. So I got them all in one shot, bought them off a buddy of mine, and I still have them today.
Yeah, see, you were ahead of your time because I never even thought about
Yeah.
army building back then.
And then
It was
imagine
just
when
like,
I got
just want to get one of every one.
when I got the
At
troop
least, but-
transporter, I was able to fill up the entire troop transporter with all my stormtroopers. That was pretty awesome. And that was the first non-movie vehicle at the time. Kenner was trying to come up with unique vehicles that
Yeah.
were off camera.
Right.
And they came up with a little backstory. I think there was like a mini comic book or something that came with that troop transporter and showed it being used by stormtroopers in the Empire. But that was the first non-movie vehicle until The Mandalorian, when they put the troop transporter in The Mandalorian. It was the final episode of season 1.
That
and
was
I
awesome.
grinned like an idiot. They have released it as a toy. I found it at Best Buy for about $70 retail on it. But I had to have it. I had to have it because I sold my original troop transporter. So
I mean, the new one is pretty awesome.
it's pretty cool.
I mean, they definitely improved on the original one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember when that pulled up too. I was like, holy moly.
Yeah.
I was like,
Pretty
I was
neat.
like, that's cool that they
Nice
that they
little
put that in
Easter
there.
egg. Yeah.
It's almost like, I will say this about the Mandalorian. It's almost like all the cool characters that weren't like the main characters.
Yeah.
They're going out of their way to
Yeah.
to focus on
Yeah.
or at least show up
Yeah.
in the Mandalorian so far.
Certain species, like you're like, oh, I remember that guy was like in the cantina, that species with the horns or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun Easter eggs in there. One other Star Wars toy that I had as a kid, I don't know if you remember this, but it was like a little movie camera, and you'd hold it up to your eye, and you would turn a crank, and it had scenes, like a little film strip in there, and you turn the crank, and it would play scenes from the movie.
That sounds
And-
vaguely
Yeah,
familiar.
and then you'd like get to the end, and you had to back it all the way up to watch it again.
Mm.
But I remember one day I was looking at it, I was trying to turn the crank, and it wouldn't turn, and it had jammed.
Mm.
And so I pried it open to see what was wrong, and the film had accordioned. It had like
Oh,
bent up and accordioned and jammed inside the movie thing, and so it was useless after that. But how cool was that to be able to watch scenes from the movie by turning a crank? And I remember watching the Millennium Falcon fly forwards and backwards and forwards, and back then that was the only way to really see scenes from the movie
Oh,
because
right,
you know
yeah.
you didn't have video or
Right.
anything at the time. So
right.
so that was an obscure thing that I had as a kid, but yeah. So that's
Yeah, I don't-
pretty much my childhood in a nutshell.
I mean, they did come out with so after the troop transport for Empire, they came out with some of those
The mini
just off
rigs.
the screen type things.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't into those. I mean, I wish I would have just got them now because I mean,
Yeah.
I thought they were kind of cool. Like they had like I remember they always put Bosk in one of them, and I loved Bosk. So Bosk was a mail away figure too, wasn't he originally?
I think he was. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I
I-
think he was. I didn't
So
send away from
I'm
him.
almost positive that I got him as a mail away figure too.
You just reminded me
but-
a tragic story that I have as a kid. Another mail away offer was the display stand. You remember the display stand?
Yeah.
It was a plastic base, gray base with foot pegs and a cardboard backdrop that had like the X-wing battles on the back.
hmm
And I cut my proofs of purchase, put in whatever money I had to put in, sent away for it, waited for it, never got it, never arrived in the mail. I
Really?
don't know if it got lost. I don't know what happened. But
Wow.
imagine a kid
Just
waiting for that every day, checking the mailbox every day, only to have to accept in my adulthood that it was never going to arrive. That was heartbreaking. And I
Wow.
think they have since re-released it or whatever. And I never got around to buying the re-release. But yeah, that's one tragic story I have as a kid is sending away for my display stand and never getting it. So
Yeah, that's odd. But but I mean, again, what do you do? What do you do back then?
Yeah,
I mean, now it's
no.
like you just send the company an email,
Yeah.
and they immediately get back to you.
Exactly.
But what do you do back then?
Back then,
You're a
you're
child.
out of luck. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, all right. Any other childhood memories? Any stories of playing with your figures? I know, boy, you know, today kids have video games and things that they do that they lock themselves in the room for hours on end. For me, it was my Star Wars toys, man. I would be in my bedroom and have everything set up and do the dialogue, and I would just be lost for hours in my bedroom playing with my Star Wars figures. It shaped
Yep.
my imagination and my childhood.
I agree. Same thing. I mean, a lot of it, like I said, was more with like my best friend growing up, who was also my next door neighbor. He had like everything between the two of us. We probably had just about everything, you know. So a lot of it was that, but you know, a lot of times it was me just by myself too, playing with the toys.
I don't know if we ever got to
So
look at your Sandcrawler. Hold up your Sandcrawler to the camera.
so this
That's a modern re-release, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was. I mean, because I think the original release was only the motorized version,
Yeah, there was a remote control
and I
Sandcrawler.
don't think that you could put. Could you put even? I don't even know if you could put figures in it. Could you?
I think it opened up. I think a side compartment opened up. I don't know if the top did, but I think the side compartment opened up.
So this was a previews exclusive, and so this like comes down. I don't know how you do it. Anyway, there's like a little elevator thing that
Yeah.
comes down here.
That's
I don't
like
know if I
the.
got to turn it all the way.
Do you remember the Land of the Jawas
I don't want
playset?
to mess with it too much, but
Yeah,
so they do have a newer version of it. This was a previews exclusive.
I had that at one time.
Okay.
I ended up selling mine.
So they
but,
do
yeah.
have one from, I think it's a Disney store exclusive. That's
Yeah.
probably more like real scale.
I like
It's
the
like $100.
coloring and stuff on that one. I really.
Well,
I
it's got
really like
legitimate
that
dirt
piece.
on it too,
Yeah.
because it was in
Oh,
my basement. But
no, it looks great. But I had
yeah,
the
it's cool. I mean, it's definitely not in scale, but
I had the Land of the Jawas playset, which had the cardboard Sandcrawler with a little elevator that lifted figures up into the cardboard thing, and then there was a plastic beige desert base and a little cave for R2 to hide in and stuff. So yeah, I had that, but I never had the Sandcrawler until this previews version. I ended up buying in the 90s or 2000s or whatever it was. I think it was the
Yeah.
2000s.
it's pretty
So
awesome.
cool.
I'm wondering if they'll release a new version because it was in the Mandalorian. It was featured in
Yeah.
first
Yeah, I'd
season
like
of
to see a
Mandalorian.
re-release. Sure.
Okay. Just one other thing that I want to mention. You were talking about how Hasbro or how Kenner kind of dropped the ball. Well, they didn't really drop the ball, but they just weren't prepared for the initial success and or the
Star Wars, yeah.
or the demand for it.
Yeah.
Would you say that Hasbro dropped the ball by not having a Baby Yoda out by last Christmas?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I don't know what they were thinking.
Now they're all over the place.
Yeah,
but-
yeah, you see them everywhere. I don't know
But
what
that
they
would
were
have been
thinking. That they
huge.
wouldn't anticipate the success of the show and the demand for toys. There's still very little Mandalorian stuff in stores. There was a wave of
I've barely
figures
seen any.
that came and went early out this year that never seemed to get restocked.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to find Mandalorian related toys. Now I just recently found the 6-inch Beskar armor Mandalorian at Target, which was really exciting. But yeah, hopefully, you know, I think the pandemic has affected shipping and all this stuff, but hopefully as Christmas rolls around, we're going to see more Mandalorian stuff. All right,
Right.
on that note, let's wrap up this episode of Top 10. And that was a lot of fun talking about our childhood. And
agree.
hopefully we'll have you again soon with a new topic, new episode. And in the meantime,
All right. Thanks
The
for having me.
Force will be with you, always.